G'day everyone, thanks for tuning in. It's a great time to be in running and in retail in particular, with a lot of new sort of super shoes coming into the shop, and probably the most common question we're getting is essentially what are the differences between some of the different models that are coming out for the first time from a lot of brands, and who do they suit. So we're going to go through a little bit of the variations between some of the shoes we've got and focus on a new one that's just landed called the ASICS METARACER. So basically, to give some context to these super shoes, the general theme is they've basically got more cushioning than a traditional racing flat, and they do that by putting in materials that are very responsive but also lightweight. So if you look at something like a METARACER, we've got a lot more cushioning than a traditional racing flat from ASICS. So we've got a last year's model called the TartherEdge here, and you see the stack height of the heel and the forefoot's a lot higher. However, the really cool thing is their weight is exactly the same, so they're around the 200 grams for a male shoe. So we're getting more cushioning, which is generally going to enhance what we call our running economy, and that means our ability to use a little bit less energy to run the same pace. But the good thing is we're not trading off the weight, which is typically what will happen with a bit more cushioning. So what you've got with an ASICS METARACER is we're generally going to see that running economy improve. So if we're looking to run a 5K, go down a park run, run a 10K or a half marathon where you know you can run the pace, but it's a question of maybe sustaining it for that little bit longer in a race period. A little bit more cushioning can be really favourable, but we're not trading off the weight too much. The positive is with something like this compared to other shoes that we've got in recently, such as the Saucony Endorphin Pro, is because the stack height's not quite as high. So we're looking at about a 25mm stack on the rear foot of the METARACER versus a 35mm stack on the Endorphin Pro. Basically, that responsiveness is still a little bit better. So if you've never really been in anything other than maybe a racing flat or a traditional lightweight trainer, maybe think like a Saucony Kinvara or a New Balance Beacon, this is sort of going to be a nice transition where you're going to feel that little bit more benefits of running economy, but not too much of a difference in stack. And we find this is particularly relevant for if you're running on the track, so we're going around bends relatively frequently, or you're planning on racing a course that's not necessarily point and shoot on the roads. There's a little bit of winding, we're going around corners, we're U-turning around a marker, etc. Just because our foot's not as high off the ground, that responsiveness and traction is a little bit better. And to put it into context, sort of the easiest way that I find, and we find here in the store, to just communicate probably what type of shoe is going to suit a runner based on their goals that are coming up, is essentially to ask the question, for that race that you're about to do, like, what's your limiting factor? So a real easy scenario is if you ask most people if they're going to the track or their local footy oval and we said just run one lap as hard as you can, very rarely are people going to say their chassis or their muscles are going to be the issue. It's probably the engine. How fast can I get oxygen from the environment into my working muscles and therefore hold a good pace? And that's where it's sort of something traditionally like a TartherEdge that was really low profile, really light, maximised performance. But say we go to a 5K, you're heading down the park run, you've got maybe the Bridges 10K coming up, and we're at that bit of a junction point where you think, you know, my muscle's going to give me a little bit of concern running that distance that quickly, then something like a METARACER is, I think, going to sort of suit you a little bit more than a TartherEdge. We're getting that bit more stack height, but we're not trading off weight. If we then keep going to the extreme, and we've sort of got the two shoes here, the Saucony Endorphin Pro and the New Balance Fuel Cell TC, you see straight away the stack height's a lot higher, so the cushioning is going up to another level. And that's really when you're starting to notice the chassis being a little bit more of an issue later into the race. So I think you sort of maybe your hilly courses and your half marathon marathons. So there's a nice sort of spectrum in store now, but the METARACER, I think, is, of all the super shoes, just probably striking that balance where excuse me, we're getting a feel for the road and we're not getting too far away from that traditional racing flat, but we're still tapping into the benefits of running economy with lighter weight materials that are giving us that bit more cushioning. So come in, give it a try, and yeah, let us know what you think. Cheers.